going to move on, viewers. Now, Palestinian civil defense is saying that the death toll from Israeli airstrikes and artillery shelling has risen to 17. The latest figures include 3 children and 6 women. Earlier, officials reported 9 deaths, but rescue teams say more bodies were recovered. The Israeli military says it carried out what it calls precision strikes after gunmen opened fire on its troops, seriously wounding an Israeli officer. Israel says the shooting amounts to a clear violation of the ceasefire that has been in place since October. According to reports, residents were killed in multiple locations. Fatalities were reported in Gaza's Tufa neighborhood, in the Z-Town area, and in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. Request Peter to join us back in the discussion here. Peter, again, a similar problem at one time, while Israel opens the Rafah border crossing to allow for urgent medical attention to be given to people who need it, who need life-saving treatment. At that time, and that too when it's opening after almost 2 years, people are being shot down?
Yes, I think actually this was a mistake by Israel, and normally I'm very understanding and even supportive of their actions. But let me explain why in this case I think it was an error. We all agree there have been numerous breaches of the ceasefire. The most that we can hope for politically is that the conflict will not escalate into the kind of conflict from October the 7th, and that phase 2 of the Trump peace plan will actually go forward. The Rafah crossing is a small but good sign, and if more people are let through, that will be very encouraging. But on this latest incident, Hamas, who are politically isolated, more politically isolated than they have been probably since their formation in the early 80s, and from a military point of view are probably more weakened now than they've ever been, needed some kind of public relations win, some kind of signal that they are still relevant militarily. And they attacked an Israeli post, I understand. An Israeli soldier, as the Israeli military have said, was severely wounded. Now, I would have thought that the Israelis would have taken that. There are some hits that you've got to take, instead of going back with the ferocity that they have been. And they've suggested it's been a targeted strike. But we know from everything, whenever Israel do strike back, we're going to see the same story from either the Hamas health authorities, or in this case I believe it's the Hamas civil defense unit. They're two of the same thing, they're no different, that civilians were killed, and of course there is no validation or verification of that yet, but they would always say that women and civilians are killed. But what we do know, that the Israelis were attacked from several militants from a Hamas post, let's say, and the Israelis hit back, which what they're saying was a targeted attack. If there was collateral damage, obviously that's horrible and should be condemned, but we don't know the full extent of that. But what we can gauge from this is Hamas will continue their one-off attacks in the hope of being seen to be relevant militarily, which the Israelis want to ensure that they are not. So it's an unfortunate episode. And as I say, I think it was a mistake, because I think Israel had no need to strike back with such ferocity unless as has been proven in previous strikes, that several Hamas operatives were killed during those operations. It's a very recent one, and I'm afraid I don't have sufficient feedback to report to your viewers and listeners how many people were killed, other than the information, which is sometimes a false narrative that we're receiving from the what's called I believe the Hamas Civil Defense Unit. They haven't been public for some time now. It's usually been the Hamas health authorities that give the feedback.
All right. Well, Peter, thanks very much then for joining us and for sharing your perspectives here. And with that, viewers, we're now going to proceed